good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce. My name is Mark Stanton. I serve as the president and the CEO of the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce, and very grateful that you have chosen to spend some time with us this morning and discuss a very important and very timely issue and opportunity that we're going to hear about and talk about today. The chamber, of course, is grateful to everyone. We were hoping to do this as a hybrid event, both in person and online, but statistics and best practices change that. And so thank you for everybody's accommodation to being willing to participate in the video format. So thank you very much for that. And thanks to the Doubletree Hilton in Scottsdale and Paradise Valley for going out of their way to help us try to accomplish that. And we know another event down the road. And speaking of events, this event is called Breakfast with a Side of. And we take that title because we typically have breakfast and then we dive into a subject that's a little deeper in some spaces or raises a lot of interest, potentially controversy in some spots. And for this season opener, for the Breakfast with a Side of event, we're going to focus on the topic of racism, diversity, and
Hey,
inclusion.
how are you today?
And I think, yeah, obviously, the current racial climate in the country has prompted a real deep examination of the ways which we can improve, the way we can look at helping racial equality. Businesses are looking for best practices, learning maybe what they didn't know about how they should be looking at diversity and inclusion in the workspace. So we've got a really amazing group today to talk with us and answer questions on behalf of the subject. And I'm very grateful and honored to start off with introducing Don Logan, Director of Phoenix. Had the honor to have known Don and worked with him for going on 15, almost 20 years, and just a real expert, a very thoughtful leader who has some experiences that he'll share and some insight that he will talk about. Don was hired as director of the Equal Opportunity Department for the city of Phoenix in June of 2015. The Equal Opportunity Director is responsible for managing city programs and policies that ensure equal opportunity in fair housing and employment, disability concerns, goals compliance, community relations, and accessibility in city services and facilities. Prior to joining the City of Phoenix, Don served as president of Don Logan and Associates, LLC. He managed a practice that was committed to providing consulting services related to diversity awareness, training, employee relations, resolutions, mediation, facilitation, and team building. He's also accomplished speaker, an author, in which he his memoir reflects years as a public official and maintaining a positive attitude. He's a speaker in college campuses, corporate agencies, commencement addresses, and of course, your Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce. Couldn't do it without it. So we're very grateful for that. Don has spent a significant amount of his background and career serving the Scottsdale. In his 30-year tenure, he served in many roles, including traffic engineering technician, parking violation hearing officer, development services manager, city manager's chief of staff, and director of the Office of Diversity and Dialogue. And as the director of the Office of Diversity and Dialogue at the City of Scottsdale, Don served as the liaison to the community and Scottsdale employees in addressing diversity challenges. The creation of that office was the first of its kind in a municipality in the state of Arizona and one of the first in the nation. Under Don's leadership, the office served as a catalyst for citywide diversity initiatives. In February 2004, in his capacity of Director of Diversity and Dialogue Office, Don was the target of a mail bomb attack. It was discovered later that the motive behind the attack was hatred, resulting in the arrest of two twin brothers to be white supremacists. Although this incident is a reminder that there is still Much hatred in our country, Don refuses to be intimidated by the cowardly act. He continues to be an advocate for diversity and encouraging the creation of an environment of respect and inclusiveness. He retired from the city of Scottsdale in 2007. There are many accolades and many accomplishments that Don has, and I encourage you to spend some time using the Google and learning more about his many accomplishments. He's a graduate of Arizona State University for Public Executives and is an ASU Community Fellow. In his spare time, he officiates high school and college basketball games. He's married and has two sons. So I'm very excited that he will be here in a few minutes and to talk to us about his experiences and then lead us into the panel discussion, which we're very proud to, and I'll give the introductions for our panelists. Um, Javier Gutierrez. Javier, I'm so grateful you're here, President and CEO of the Arizona Coyotes. I thought, Javier, you may wear the new uniform today. I'm
I
a
I
little
would love
disappointed.
to. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed myself.
Well, we were grateful that you were here in your role. In his role, he oversees all business operations, strategic planning, significant organizational decision making, and government relations for the club. He is the first Latino team president and CEO in NHL history. Mr. Gutierrez joins the Coyotes from his position as managing director at Clear Lake Capital Group. He has 20 years of career experience in business as a business executive, investor, and deal maker focused on investment management, corporate strategy, and operations. As a managing director of Clear Lake Capital Group, Mr. Gutierrez focused on investments, operations, strategic development, and investor client services. Previously, he served as chief investment officer of Murillo Group, a family office of U.S. Latino business executives, and Coyotes chairman and governor Alex Murillo. He is principal and managing director with Phoenix Realty Group, a national real estate equity firm which managed approximately $1 billion in institutional capital from leading pension funds and banks to insurance companies. He has been very active in several nonprofit organizations, academic and philanthropic organizations. He currently serves on the board of regents for his alma mater, Bellarmine College Preparatory in San Jose. He also serves on the board of directors of the investment committee for the California Community Foundation, a public charitable organization founded in 1915 that stewards nearly $1.7 billion in assets. Previously, he served on the board of directors of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which is a national organization dedicated to supporting and promoting over 4 million Hispanic and Latino business owners in the United States. A proud graduate of Bellarmine College Preparatory and all boys Jesuit school in San Jose, he received his Bachelor of Arts in government from Harvard University and his doctorate in jurisprudence from Stanford Law School. Mr. Gutierrez and his wife live in Paradise Valley, and we welcome him to the discussion. And congratulations on the new position. And of course, the new uniforms. I got to bring those up again. Finally, for our rounding out our panel, we're very grateful to have Stanna Michelle Slater with us today. Stanna Michelle Slater, born Jeffrey Slater, has been practicing law in Arizona since 1989. She's licensed to practice in all Arizona state courts and in the United States District Court of Arizona. Ms. Slater obtained her Juris Doctorate degree in 1989 from the University of Denver, my alma mater, by the way. Go Pioneers! From the University of Denver College of Law, where she was a published staff writer for the Denver University Law Review. Her practice is located in Scottsdale and is recognized as the law office of Jeffrey S. Slater, which she founded in January of 1999. Ms. Slater focuses her practice on civil litigation, estate planning, public policy advocacy for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. Since launching the law office of Jeffrey Slater, Ms. Slater has represented a diverse array of insurance companies, healthcare providers, corporations, estates, and individuals. For her professional achievements and ethics, she was received the distinguished recognition from Martindale-Hubbell and Suburb recognition for AVO Online Directory of Attorneys. Ms. Slater currently serves as the LGBTQ liaison for the city of Scottsdale, where she also serves on the Scottsdale Police Chiefs Community Engagement Committee. Ms. Slater is a former board member of the 1 in 10, an Arizona nonprofit that empowers LGBTQ youth for youth centers throughout Arizona. In 2016, a city of Scottsdale recognized Ms. Slater as a Diversity Champion of the Year. That same year, Arizona Foothills magazine named her one of the 8 women who moved the valley. Thank you, Stanna, so much for being here, a fellow DU pioneer as well. All right, with that said, I'm going to ask Don if he'll lead us off. And again, we have a wonderful audience. Thanks for Nationwide. Nationwide Insurance has been so kind to sponsor us this morning, and we welcome them and thank them for their engagement on all subjects that make Scottsdale and our area a great place to work. And we thank them for their support of this program today. Take it away, Don.
Mark, thank you. And thank you, Scottsdale Chamber, for hosting us this morning. Welcome our fellow panel members. We've never met before, but I look forward to engaging with you. But let me lay a little backdrop to this morning's topic. The whole issue of racism is obviously been polarizing here, not only here in Arizona and Scottsdale, but nationally. We've become very divided in terms of the race lines, and it's some of the political rhetoric that we've been coping with over the past several years has created and contributed to this divisiveness. And we've just come through an election that has been very challenging. 140 million votes were cast in this last election. So obviously the American people are concerned. That coupled with, we're in the midst of a pandemic that has been lingering on for 9 months. Who would have thought we would have been doing a Scottsdale Chamber breakfast virtually this morning? But that's our reality now. And I think the conditions that come with the pandemic has created a lot of anxiety. And I love my home, but I don't know that I love it as much or need to love it as much time as I've spent in my home these last 9 months. So any chance to get out and to engage and to interact with people is a welcome change for me. I'll begin my conversation this morning with a quote that many of those who know me know that it resonates with me well, but I think it relates to our topic today in terms of racial relations. Dr. Martin Luther King, there are many quotes that have been attributed to him, but the one quote that I think really hits the spot in terms of the current environment of race relations today is a quote that says, people don't get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. And they don't know each other because they have failed to communicate with each other. You can look at any of us on this panel this morning. And if you haven't taken the time to look beyond that which you see, which represents diversity, and begin to have a conversation about the backgrounds, the upbringings, the religions, our sexual orientation, you may look at us and think gender-wise that you know what you're seeing is who you are. But based on what you see, may not necessarily be who you are or what you're seeing. And what tends to come out of that is if something is different than what you are accustomed to, I think we, by nature, human nature, we react negatively because it's different. Let me put it in a different context. If you're driving a certain path to work every day, And when you encounter a construction zone or an accident, how do we react as people? Do we react positively? Or we get thrown off our course, we react negatively. The fact of the matter is, our reaction to difference doesn't necessarily translate in a positive way. What we have seen these past few months since the George Floyd incident, and that's one of several, is outrage. But we've seen this before, and I'm not saying this as an indictment against law enforcement, but people of color, Black people, are concerned about their relationship with law enforcement and the history of numerous different incidents in different formats that have occurred involving people of color and our relationships with each other as a country. Our history here in America, in terms of how we have treated each other as it relates to race relations, is a sad commentary, but it's our reality. And today, we are having to address the 1,000-pound elephant in the room that has continued to expand over these last 9 months, which coincidentally ties in with the pandemic conditions. So we've had race relations. We've gotten the attention of this young generation, because race relations today is not much different than it was in the 50s and the 60s, 1950s, 1960, the civil rights, civil rights movement. I'm reminded of an interview that I did with a local network that asked the question, so what's different about this movement? And I would say to you that what's different is the issues of today in terms of race relation isn't isolated to the communities of color. It has expanded to a more inclusive conversation in terms of anyone that's human having a concern with how people are being treated in this country, how people are being treated in Arizona, how people are being treated across the country. So I know that I've had plenty of time to reflect, and that reflection is incumbent upon all of us to take a look at our inner selves and understand what we can do to bring about change. We need to do something different than what we've done in the past. So this morning, to be able to have a conversation about race relations, breaking down walls, creating alliances. I think back of my experience in Scottsdale. Probably one of the greatest decisions that I could have made was accepting an opportunity to take this inner city kid from South Phoenix, fresh out of college, and I began my employment in Scottsdale, where I grew accustomed to being surrounded by people who didn't look like me. And some would bristle with that thought. But I got accustomed to being in meetings, being the only person that looked like me. And I think part of that is how I reacted to that is my own upbringing. You see, my parents taught me to look for the good in all people and to treat the people with always treat people with respect. Treat people the way you want to be treated. So I found myself in a community and an organization that didn't resemble me in the most remote way. Scottsdale, 2000 census, was the 5th whitest community in the country. And here I am, forefront, leading a diversity office, which was the first to have been created in the state of Arizona, one of the first municipalities to have created a diversity office in the country. And as a person of color, I had people say to me, you know, Don, when I see you, I don't see a Black man. Well, I would tell you, I have mirrors in my house every morning that tell me that I'm a Black man. And I don't apologize for that, nor did I feel that I ever had to do my 30-year career in Scottsdale. As Mark mentioned in my bio, and Mark, thank you for laboring through the long version of my bio. I don't, you know, someone once said to me, let your differences be the difference for us rather than the difference between us. We are all different, and there's something different about us. But until we learn to take that difference and leverage it in a way that it improves our relationship, my understanding of someone who is different is so important to me in terms of if I'm interested in maintaining and strengthening my relationship with that person, focusing on that which is different to help me understand, it's going to support and benefit that relationship. The platform that I speak from that resulted in my writing my memoir, Targeted Delivery Destination, Scottsdale, Arizona, was the bomb the bomb incident that I dealt with in 2004. And the question that I had to ask myself, my inner self, was, why did I become a target of a white supremacist group? And what I found out later is I represented everything that the white supremacists hated. As an African-American male, as a diversity practitioner, someone that is known to the media, and someone who would be unsuspecting. I opened a package that federal officials are telling me that they don't know how I survived. And a package that was intended to kill. And had I not opened it the way that I did, I wouldn't be here today. And for why? For what reason? This was a hate crime. And the reason, ironically, the reason I ended up on the radar screen with this white supremacist group is because I was responsible for hosting a Hispanic heritage celebration in Scottsdale that the white supremacists felt, as the 5th whitest community in the country, it had no place in Scottsdale. And when the media asked me, why was Scottsdale hosting this event? My explanation was real simple. Most people think that the only people that benefit from a Hispanic heritage celebration are Hispanics. When in reality, those of us who are non-Hispanic may benefit most because we learn about Hispanic culture. And the more we learn about that which is different than us, the stronger we become, the stronger our relationships become, the stronger we become. So if I had had a chance to have a conversation with the perpetrator of sending me that bomb, I may have been able to convince him that he too may benefit from learning about someone who is different than he, because the hate that he harnessed and he took out on someone who he didn't know. He's now doing 40 years of federal time for a senseless act that could have very easily have taken me away from my family, away from the community that I love, and from the work that I enjoy doing. So I'm here today to talk about affecting change and how we affect change from within. It starts with each of us. So I look forward to hearing from our other panelists to talk about their experiences, to ask some very pointed questions of each of them, and to engage in a conversation, because as my own quote is, through our own diversity, we see our differences. But it isn't until we begin to have these conversations we gain respect and appreciation for those differences. So here we are with Stanna Michelle Slater, an attorney here in Scottsdale. Stanna, I'm going to ask you to take 3 minutes and share whatever you want to share with the audience. And Xavier will follow up with you to give you 3 minutes. And then we'll follow with a series of questions. And to the attendees, if there are questions that you have of me or the panel members, certainly hit us up on the chat, and we'll be happy to engage those. So with that, Stanna, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Don. First of all, I'm humbled to be a part of this panel, especially with Don having had to experience the horrific hate crime and violence that he did. As a transgender woman, I've been fortunate that so far I've not been subjected to any type of hate or violence. But the reality is that I'm probably the exception rather than the rule in this regard. I'm fortunate to live and work in a nice part of Scottsdale. I stay very busy and keep a fairly low profile, but I too, I suppose, could receive a package in the mail. And the reports are numerous about how transgender people across America are being targeted with violence, particularly transgender women of color. It is shocking that so many people are losing their lives and are suffering simply because they're trying to live their lives as the person they identify being. And with respect to transgender people, we're in so many ways like anyone else. I, for example, was born in a military family. My father was a high-ranking Army officer. We were integrated in our work and in our schooling. I was taught values, American values of hard work, just like the kids I went to school with, especially in the military system, kids of all colors. I grew up with faith, believing in God, and continue to believe in God today. But there's so much that is assumed about people simply because they look different. And those of us who are transgender certainly are at the forefront in that regard. I'm hoping that today during this time that we spend together, we'll be able to have a meaningful conversation about what it means to just be yourself and yet still face the challenges of discrimination. Hopefully, when it's all said and done, there will be a better understanding among those who have been here today and participated, so that they can leave recognizing that we have a great city. We're all unique in our own ways. We're not threatening. And if you're willing to do the right thing and open your arms and accept, you'll find that it's not only the morally right thing to do, but it's also very good for business. Again, thank you for letting me be a part of this, and I look forward to the question and answer segment, where hopefully I can share some more about what I'm doing and what some of my friends have done and are doing, and how Scottsdale really is working to become a city that's welcoming to everyone.
Stanna, thank you. Javier, hockey. Well, first, welcome to the Valley.
Thank you very much, Don. Appreciate it.
So 6 months you've been here. You've weathered the heat. They gave you a pass on the monsoon, so you haven't seen the dust yet.
I have not.
But this is the reason. Look out the window today. This is the reason people live here. And by the way, I'm a native. I'm born and raised here. I don't know any other. I'm a desert rat, as they call it. But tell us about your experience being the first Latino in the hockey profession.
Sure. Well, Don, first of all, thank you for having me, Mark, the entire chamber. I'm very, very honored to be here. And Stanna, I really appreciate the opportunity to share this virtual panel with you as well. And as Don mentioned, we haven't all had a chance to meet, but I look forward to having a chance to meet in person. So thank you for the invitation. I think the conversation today is beyond important in general, but is beyond important to me. And let me tell you why. Because I'll answer the question of that a friend of mine, who I grew up in San Jose, California, and we'll get to a little bit about my background and how it brought me here, but who literally asked me, what the hell are you going to do running a hockey team? Like, I mean, he just couldn't comprehend it, right? And so I'm answering that question in the context of how it leads us to this discussion. And that is, I've had a lengthy career, almost 2 decades plus of being in the investment business and in the finance business. And so I have had my share of experiences of being the first and only in the room that looks like me. When I was on Wall Street, when I was in private equity, when I was been in commercial banking, you look around and I've had those experiences. But what sports gives you is this platform and a voice to bring up issues. And ultimately, Alex Morello, the owner of the Coyotes, who himself is a trailblazer as the first Latino owner in the NHL, and who's been a friend and a partner and a business partner of mine for well over a decade, when he really pitched me the idea, what got me and what he knew would get me was that where I was at in my life is that I really wanted to take my professional efforts into making a difference. And what I say constantly is sports is my platform, but making an impact is my purpose as an individual. And so for me, these are the conversations that I had envisioned. And this is the interaction that I had envisioned when, quite frankly, I took the leap to run a hockey team. And it was absolutely not lost on me that I was going to be a Latino in Arizona leading a team in a sport that is the least diverse sport in America. And I thought it was incredibly appropriate because I fundamentally believe what Don just said, that the now and the future is about how we can all open doors and all have these conversations of bringing new voices and new people to the table. And just my, as they say, representation matters. Being at the table, in this position, which I'm very honored to be in, gives that life, gives that opportunity to sit there and say, wow, let's open our eyes to what the world is around us and what it looks like. I often use the quote of the great Wayne Gretzky, right? Using a hockey quote, because I think it's appropriate to use a hockey quote, is, where is the puck going in America? And the puck in America, where it's going, is not, and you say it not from the perspective of let's turn our back on what it's been or where it's at, but let's open to what it can be when it's fully realized, right? The full potential of this country. And again, let me backtrack. I was born in Mexico. I was an immigrant to this country when I came here when I was a toddler. I was a dreamer before that concept even existed because my mother overstayed a student visa here. And so I have been very, very fortunate to live my American dream. And I am the oldest of four. My parents didn't go to college yet, just saw their four children not just go to college, but go to Ivy League schools and attain incredible success academically and professionally. This country has given my family a lot. My father was a mechanic. My mother was a stay-at-home mother until she became a student aide and eventually ran a migrant ed program in East San Jose. Um, we were we grew up very modestly, and yet we've had incredible opportunity because of this country. And we've also felt the responsibility to be that voice for those that don't have it, to open the doors for those that haven't had a chance to walk through them. The Jesuit ethos of being a man and woman for others has been ingrained through my entire family. And so it's not just an opportunity, but it's a responsibility to raise these issues, to have these uncomfortable conversations. And so that's why I'm here. And I'm literally took a leap and left a career in investment and finance to run a sports team, quite frankly, in order to try to leave an impact in communities and in this community, which, you know, my family and I, we've moved here. We've bought a home. I have a 12-year-old son and he's going to Phoenix Country Day, and this is our home, and this is the community that we want to be a part of, and we want to help it be fully realized, its potential to be fully realized. And the best way to do that is to bring new voices and new individuals to the table. And before I leave, Don, I will use another quote that I've been using a lot lately. As you can imagine, I've been asked to have this conversation about diversity, inclusion, and equity in sports and in business and what have you. And I use a Benjamin Franklin quote to describe what I do believe might be a difference today. And that is, I get this feeling that people are embracing this concept that justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. And I'm sensing outrage by those who may not be unaffected in a way that you have not. And I have not seen that in the past. That is what I hold hope for, this being a different time, a moment in time that turns into a movement of our generation.
Well said. Well said. Let me shift back over to Shana. And Shana, as a transgendered individual, a question that often gets confused is transgender the same as, is it considered gay?
That's a great question, Don, and the answer is no. There are two different qualities or characteristics that exist within the concept of being gay versus transgender, and they are distinct. Um, Being gay deals with one's sexual orientation. Everyone has a sexual orientation, even those who are heterosexual. So being gay simply deals with one's particular sexual orientation. Being transgender, on the other hand, deals with gender identity and how a person feels inside that they are in their true self and how they express that outwardly, perhaps as a woman or as a transgender man who may have been assigned female birth, female gender at birth and presents as a man. So they are definitely different. And within that, you may find that individuals who are transgender may be attracted to members of the same gender or not. So it is something to be distinctive, and people should not just assume that if somebody is transgender, that means that they're gay.
So Shane, how would you describe the? You mentioned earlier that you're kind of low profile, but I'm sure you've had encounters of being transgender, being different than what someone else may have presumed you to be. How do you deal with that?
Well, are you asking how do I deal with people who don't know that I'm transgender? Is that the question?
That's one.
Okay. I'm actually surprised usually. I am 6'1" flat-footed and my voice is low. So I always assume that as soon as I walk into a room, everyone knows that person is different. And within a few seconds, I presume they figured out that I'm transgender. And if they haven't, I confess that I'm usually flattered, but then I am eager to talk about the cause that I am working hard to try to advance. And so then I explain, and I sometimes get told I had no idea, and I just am usually shocked.
Okay.
Well,
So
sorry to interrupt you, but my name is pronounced Stanna.
oh, thank you. Thank you.
Name, so it happens all the time.
I make at least one mistake within every hour of every day. So I'm used to being corrected. Thank you for doing it. Stanna. Stanna.
Yes. Like I said, it's a very unusual name.
Okay. So Javier, Stanna just talked about something that is part of our societal norm being changed, something that has changed over time. And I got to think professional sports is impacted by this in terms of sexual orientation. We're hearing of many professional athletes who are coming out and expressing and sharing their professional identity. How does that permeate within the hockey profession? And how would the Coyotes? And I'm a Coyote fan, by the way.
Great.
How would the administration respond to a player, hypothetically, that would come out as gay?
Yeah. Let me take a step back and then I'll ask her, because I've been asked this question, not that specific question, but a question about very early on. And again, I remind people, I've been here less than 6 months and yet a lot has happened. Very early on, this ownership, and obviously myself as the new CEO, made it very clear that we were going to align this organization with our values. And our values were very clear about issues of diversity and inclusion and social justice being important. And someone asked me, well, but you guys are in sports. Why would you take those things on? Right. And I said, well, first of all, it's who we are. Right. But
Mhm.
second, it's important to my team members. It's important to my community. And oh, by the way, it's important to my corporate partners, right? So going back to Stanna's point of good business, right? How could I possibly not at least engage in those conversations? It just didn't make any sense. And so for us, these issues, because clearly when there's been a seismic shift of sports and athletes in particular, um, taking on and being very vocal about their positions on these types of issues. I mean, we can remember again. I grew up in San Jose, so the San Jose track team in 1968 of John Carlos and these others taking a stand in the Olympics, that was beyond frowned upon. I mean, they were kicked off the Olympic team for raising these issues. Think of the seismic shift that we're talking about today, where you have athletes that are not just willing to discuss these things, they're actually taking leadership roles in them. And whether it be civic leadership issues, social justice issues, economic justice issues, and certainly issues around sexual orientation. And so for us as an organization, we would be incredibly supportive. We would be, and in fact, I have members of my team that are quite prominent in the LGBTQ community. The head of my youth hockey program, Lindsay Fry, um, is beyond the fact that she's an Olympian hockey player and runs our youth hockey program. And so she's, as you can imagine, is pretty good at hockey. Um, she's incredibly proud to be part of that community. And from day one, it was absolutely something that we wanted to be a part of and embrace. I, truth be told, Don, was quite saddened that we were the first NHL to find out that we were the first NHL team to sign on to the Unity Pledge. I was like, how is that possible? And to me, it was a no-brainer. It was absolutely something that we would do because again, it was important to my team members, it was important to my fan base, and it was going to be important to my business partners. Besides the fact, again, that it was who we are and it aligns with our values. And I know that it can be controversial, and I know that trust me, I've had my fair share of letters coming to, my ticket sellers saying, we're sort of taking um, a stance that not some of our ticket holders may not like, and they're threatening, to not pay. I said, I get that. There's consequences, but this is who we're going to be, and we're going to be respectful always, but we're going to align our actions with our values.
Thank you. I got a follow-up question. I'll come back to you in a minute, but
Sure.
Stanna, before we came live here, we had a conversation about an incident that I was involved with when I was the diversity director in Scottsdale. And it involved a commission member who was appointed as a married male and reappointed as to the same commission as a transgendered female who got involved in an incident out with the business community, went to I don't know if it was a restaurant or a bar, but went to the public restrooms, and being a transgendered female that was not totally complete, but cosmetically appeared as female, and created a major spark within the business community. in Scottsdale because this individual was still a male by biological definition. Went to the ladies' restroom, and it created a major issue for the city government, for the Scottsdale Chamber, the business communities. Should business communities be concerned about transgender frequenting their facilities? And if so, why?
I can understand that this is an issue for business owners and for people in general in public accommodation. It makes sense that for many years, things have been laid out so simplistically and people have been doing things a certain way. The reality is that it's already a crime for anyone to go into a public restroom and engage in any behaviors other than what the restroom is designed for, like looking at somebody or worse. People I know who are transgender simply want to live their lives. And when it comes to public restrooms, nobody wants to hang out there. It's not a fun place to be. You do your business and you leave, and you try not to cause any stir in the process. Most public restrooms are established and set up in such a way that people who go in, regardless of their gender identity, are able to discreetly go in and leave without any issues or awkwardness or confrontation. The situation you've mentioned, I'm not directly familiar with. It happened many years ago. I've heard some details about it over the years. It's unfortunate that it played out the way that it did, and that it got the attention that it did, particularly the negative attention. Most of the transgender people I know are very discreet and very polite and would not probably even be noticed going in and out in the brief time necessary to use a public restroom. But again, I understand that businesses are managing a lot of issues, trying to meet the bottom line. And when something unusual comes along, like an individual who's transgender going into their restroom and not necessarily passing, as the expression goes, so that nobody even knew that this person was transgender, and a question is raised, there needs to be sensitivity on the part of the person expressing the concern, as well as sensitivity on the transgender person who's being questioned about this, and sensitivity on the part of the business owner who's just trying to run their business and deal with their patrons. I hope that over time we'll all become more accustomed to the fact that transgender people are not a threat. Restrooms are kind of an awkward place anyway, regardless of your gender identity. I can tell you, back when I was living as a man, I never felt comfortable going into the men's room. I went in and got out. And that's the way most people feel about it. And so there really shouldn't be that big of a problem associated with it. And a lot of businesses these days are starting to even see the benefits of creating individual, almost like closets for what used to be the stalls, and then common areas for the vanity and the mirror and the sinks. There are always solutions. They don't have to be extreme. I think people just understanding that transgender people are living their lives with the gender identity that they see themselves as aren't going to be a problem when it comes to the public restrooms.
I would share with you, obviously that happened before you relocated to the Scottsdale area. The business owner, to their credit, worked with the transgender community and came up with the concept of building a gender neutral restroom, which is classified as family restroom by today's standards. And as a result of that agreement, develop a very strong relationship with the LGBTQ community and ultimately increase their business.
Wow.
So that's a success story. What was interesting about it, it became headline news nationally because it was, and it's, I think, large part because it was happening in Scottsdale. But the part that didn't surface out of that was the good news in terms of how the transgender community came together with this business owner, addressed an issue, and the net profit was a benefit to the business owner as well as the transgender community feeling comfortable frequenting their establishment. So that's a feel-good story.
Very nice.
Javier, you touched on something earlier that is kind of a pet peeve of mine. So don't be alarmed by what I'm finished to ask you. Sports and professional athletes taking a position on political issues, that has been kind of a mean-spirited debate across the country. What is your thought on that? Because those of us who have dealt with this, I've been, and you and I haven't met before today, but I have been very critical of professional athletes and their unwillingness to engage in political topics. When in fact, I think of football players. I'll talk about, I'm a hometown fan. I love the Cardinals. I love the Suns. I love the Coyotes. I love the Mercury. I even love the soccer team that I don't even know their name, the Sun.
The Rising.
The Rising, yeah. I follow all the sports teams. But those of us who work with me on the MLK Planning Committee have heard me say this years ago, that I don't know why professional athletes and in football, basketball, the majority of athletes are like me, they're Black. And they have benefited from the civil rights movement. Yet we don't hear anything from them when it comes to issues of race relations, even just attending the MLK celebration. Scottsdale hosts one of the largest MLK celebrations, certainly one in the state, one of the best in the country. But I never see any of our professional athletes support that event. I was pleasantly surprised to hear about our hockey team taking a knee and doing the national anthem in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. What are your thoughts or your comments on that?
Yeah, you're touching on obviously something that's it's a big issue, right? And it certainly isn't going to be encapsulated in just this conversation. I can tell you that what we are doing as an organization is giving the platform for our players to do what they want to do. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure that teams and leagues in the past have allowed that to be the case, right? So I think that has been part of the issue, that when you have your boss basically saying, you're here just to play, then it's harder for you to then, kind of maneuver in that situation. This is not an excuse. I'm just pointing out that has been the part of the issue. We, as I've shared with you, we believe that it is incumbent upon us to give that platform to our players and give them that freedom. And to the extent that they come to us and say, how do we best do it? We're there to clearly help offer suggestions and give them thoughts. Listen, I have my personal opinion, which is that even so I made this statement once when I was in law school, and it was around actually JAG. JAG wanted to come and recruit at Stanford Law School, which is the judge advocate general in the military. And at the time, there was obviously a very distinctive policy that many rightfully, I think, believed was very anti the LGBTQ community. And I remember there being a very big debate as to whether or not student organizations should take positions in support or not. And you're talking about student organizations that had nothing to do with politics per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying and writing in the Stanford Cardinal that even your decision not to make or take an action is an action, right? And I've shared that with athletes that have asked me. Even your decision to not do something is a decision. And to your point, Don, athletes have a special place in our society. I think the absence of sports during this pandemic has shown the primacy of sports, right? To culture, to commerce, to communities, to all these issues. And I do believe that athletes need to look in the mirror and say, I am part of this community. I am part of this culture. I am part of the conversation. And for me not to be engaged just does not seem to be right as an individual. Forget as an athlete, just as an individual. And so, there is my personal feeling and then our organizational feeling, which is that we want to give people that opportunity. We do believe there is a responsibility to have engagement because it is what is. You can't say, hey, teams are part of a community and then not be engaged in the issues that are going on in the community. It's just that doesn't seem appropriate. And so I'm glad to see that the challenge, Don, sometimes is these are athletes that sometimes don't have good, platforms to go down. It's not that they don't have there's not an athlete in the world that can get in front of a media outlet. Okay. They can all get in front of a media outlet. So it's not that they don't have the distribution mechanism. It's just sometimes, okay, how best to do it and how best to express it. And understand, by the way, not all of them are prepared to deal with the consequences of taking a position. And we've seen it. We've seen, especially in the NBA, there's been some very vocal athletes who have had consequences in terms of political backlash. Not every athlete is prepared for that.
But there are NBA athletes who have spoke out on political topics and have invoked change, because I think some of this revolution that we're seeing and as a result of the George Floyd incident didn't take off until our professional athletes started to say, hey, enough is enough.
100%. I mean, I hate to put it this way, but if it wasn't for Rudy Gobert testing positive for COVID and shutting down the NBA, that was a seminal moment in this virus. I mean, people point to that, and right. So the impact that athletes have beyond just the sporting world is incredible. And I agree with you when we're now putting into the context of the issues around social and racial justice. Yeah, athletes have been part of the leadership in putting that into the consciousness of this country. And I agree with you that is the type of power that I would love to see be harnessed more. I was very proud of our team in the bubble to be, and I think about it, these are young, the hockey players are extremely young. They tend to be very, very young. And so they're maturing just in their personal development. And a lot of them actually are not from the US. And so engaging in racial justice issues of the US is not, it's not natural to them because that's not necessarily been their upbringing. And yet they understand that they live here and they play here and they earn a living here, and they have to be mindful and aware and open-minded to the issues that are surrounding them.
Thank you. Stanna, we have a chat comment that I think is that relates to the topic earlier where we talked about public restrooms. And this chat says, I'm a male. if I went to the ladies' restroom, it would not make the news. How do you react to that?
I confess that I don't think I understand the question, only because, I mean, if a man who identifies as a man goes into the ladies' room, that's certainly not expected. Maybe it didn't make the news because it wasn't that big of a deal. I don't know. Um, I'm struggling with the question.
I think it's a comment that almost suggests that the transgender example that we spoke of, the incident we spoke of in Scottsdale, and how that became a news topic. I think this person is saying, if the gender were switched and this was a male who identified as a male went to a ladies' restroom, it would not be newsworthy. But depending on what this person did when they went to the ladies' room becomes newsworthy. Because I will tell you that we had an incident very similar to that happened here at one of our libraries, where the law was tested. There is no law against a male going to a ladies' restroom. But if a male in a ladies' restroom is conducting himself in a way that criminally impacts someone else in the restroom, then it becomes our issue. But a male going to a ladies' restroom to do what restrooms are intended to do, there's no law against that.
I think a fair description of the Arizona statute.
Yes. This is a real issue. Thank you for that comment, because it's a real issue that we've had to deal with. So,
Don, I would just like to say it doesn't have to be an issue. People who are transgender don't live their lives in the public restrooms. We work our jobs, we engage in our hobbies, we spend so much time volunteering. Many of us are members of the faith community and volunteer at our churches or at nonprofit organizations. There's so much about who we are and what we do and what we try to give back based on the American values that most of us have been raised with to begin with, that the bathroom ends up being this very, very small part of our existence. And yet it seems to be what some people want to talk the most about. And I'm hopeful that we can reach a point someday where we look at transgender people for what they're doing in the community and not make a big issue of where they happen to spend a very brief period of time that involves a public restroom.
thank you. Let me get off the restrooms for a minute and go back over here to hockey.
Thank you.
You mentioned it earlier, Javier, being Latino and involved with a hockey team. There isn't a whole lot of diversity in terms of the demographic makeup of hockey players, and it's not just the Coyotes; it's the entire league. What types of strategies are you going to employ that will entice athletes of color to consider hockey as a career?
I think it's a good question, and it is core to the business plan that I've articulated. To me, one of the biggest surprises I've had is how big a hockey town this place is. This is a big hockey community. You have obviously an incredibly rabid Coyote fan base. Glad to hear you, Don, that you're a fan, and I'm hopeful that everybody on this call is a Coyotes fan. So that is a absolute asset. Okay, and I constantly say we are going to focus on our Coyote fans and our Coyote fans in waiting, because that's how I feel about what we want to do. We want to tap into Coyote fans in waiting. This is a sport that is about passion, about speed, about skill. And when you go to a hockey, I've talked to people, and most of them can remember my first hockey game because it hits you. It is loud, it is fast, it keeps your attention. Because of the ice, you almost feel a part of the game. The challenge has been that I don't believe the sport, and this is not disparaging, but I don't think the sport has done a good job of, again, going where the puck is going, right? So if you look at the community in which we live in, and you look at the growth, it is young, it's female, and it's multicultural. How am I not going to go to those places if I'm looking to grow as a business? Because at the end of the day, sports franchises are sports franchises and business enterprises. And my goal is to have us be top of class in both, right? A model sports franchise and a model business enterprise. And as a business enterprise, I'm going to constantly look for growth. And where do I believe that growth exists? Where the puck is going. So it's incumbent upon us to be intentional about our outreach to non-traditional communities, to be authentic, to not just say, hey, we're here and then we're leaving and it's a transactional relationship. I'm trying to create an emotional connection. I'm trying to create that beloved nature that you have, that feeling that our rabid fan base has for the Coyotes, to non-traditional communities. And so it's being intentional. It's saying it's upon us to open our arms and to be out in the community, and then also to be innovative. It's difficult to throw up an ice rink in the middle of the desert. Okay, we have a lot of land, but it's not very easy to do that. And so, what are the other ways that you can get people with sticks in their hands, with balls on the ground, stick ball, roller ball? Like there's variations of the sport. But more importantly, Don, again, it goes back to this. I'm looking for them to have an emotional connection with us because this is an experience that can be shared with families, that is multi-generational, that is something that can be a part of people's personal narrative of who they are. Their sports journey absolutely can include the Coyotes. And that's what I'm looking to do. And again, it's incumbent upon us. We have to do the outreach. We have to open the doors. We have to be in those communities. And that's what we're seeking to do. And we're being, again, intentional and authentic and innovative about it.
Well, I would tell you that there were no hockey rinks in my neighborhood.
Yeah. But you can throw up a roller hockey rink basically in a park with concrete. You can do that. And that's what we're seeking to do as well.
And Javier, everybody loves a winner.
Oh yeah.
The Coyotes, the Fickle fans are going to continue to stay on the bandwagon as long as you keep winning. You guys went to the playoffs last year, if I recall correctly. Yep. And you did better than anyone expected. So we love winners, and I'm still trying to follow that puck. By watching the television, my coordination is bad, man.
Yeah. Yes.
So, Shane, I got a question for you. In terms of hiring and retention with the city of Scottsdale, what does the city of Scottsdale do to extend itself to hire how receptive are they to not only hiring transgendered employees, but retaining them? How, because you can recruit and hire people, but what does Scottsdale do to keep good employees that may be transgendered once they're hired?
The city of Scottsdale has actually been very progressive in this regard. The city has, for many years, at least a decade, had an employee non-discrimination policy that applies for hiring and for retention. And that non-discrimination policy for employees covers both sexual orientation and gender identity. That might sound like something that's relatively easy to do on paper without necessarily following through on, but the city of Scottsdale is actually taking measures to really put teeth behind that policy. And one of the examples was the city's implementation of a transgender employment benefits policy, so that all of the employees and their insured dependents would have coverage for transgender health care. So this has been something the city has clearly stepped out to make a point. And I know it to be true because I've had conversations with the fire chief and with the police chief about their interest in hiring transgender individuals. And it is certainly not an issue. They have convinced me that a person's gender identity would not be an issue in of itself to the police and the fire department, each reaching out or accepting the applications and hiring someone who is transgender.
Okay. In terms of logistical question, Mark, I think we got about 10 minutes to entertain questions. Is that correct? You good with that? Stanna, got a question for you. Is Scottsdale continuing to partner with, I think this is Scottsdale Center for the Arts, in regard to public outreach initiatives highlighting contributions of local LGBT community?
There's been a dramatic decrease this year in what the city of Scottsdale has been able to do in terms of LGBTQ outreach, simply because of the pandemic. And that's been very unfortunate. But I know from working with Sharon Sinney, who is the Diversity and Inclusion Program Manager, that it is the city's intent to continue programs that include partnering with, among others, the Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art. My predecessor, David Simmons, who held the position of LGBTQ liaison at the city before I was appointed, was instrumental in starting that program, and it was very successful. There was a number of other programs that David initiated and that we want to continue participating in. As recent as last year, we were able to obtain a contingent from the city of Scottsdale to be in the Phoenix Pride Parade. That included vehicles from the fire department, the police department, facilities, and the library. Plus, we had around 50 people marching. The city of Scottsdale is clearly interested in continuing its efforts that have begun years ago, and even venturing out into new opportunities to demonstrate that the city is welcoming to the LGBTQ community.
Thank you. To all of our participants, if there are questions that you would like to ask of the panel members, please let me check here. I think we have one here. As a professional African-American musician, I notice bands of color are not represented in casinos and resorts. Do you feel they are overlooked because of race? I'm not sure who can answer that. Mark, that might be yours.
That's Doc Jones who asked that question. Doc, thank you for being here. And Doc and Karen Connor on the call today, and they represent the International Jazz Day Arizona Foundation, and very important program and a great event coming up this spring. I think that, and Doc, we had a talk this past week briefly about music and being inclusive and where that's going. I think that the bigger picture for casinos, and obviously there, and Javier, you are very closely partnered on some of these programs with the casinos. I think they're looking to pursue better diversity, to be more inclusive, to be more open. I think that what I see from my position at the chamber is uh, there's a competitive set there where those types of entertainment venues are looking to find new ways to attract guests and to fulfill that area to give them the competitive edge. So I think it's some place where there could be definite improvement, and I think it's going to be an ongoing process.
Mark, thank you. At this point, I see no more questions. Any closing comments from either of our panel members?
I just like to say thank you to everyone who participated today. This has been a valuable discussion for me personally, and I hope that those who were part of it um, leave with more awareness of perhaps topics that may not have been familiar to them, and that in the end, this knowledge will hopefully help to dispel some of the fears that otherwise might lead to divisions and ultimately discrimination. Again, thank you so much, and to the panelists and the Scottsdale Chamber. Javier, it's so nice to meet you, and Don and Mark, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the thanks. Listen, these are, as I say, they're uncomfortable conversations that we need to be having in order to create that understanding that will ultimately then create change. I think if people have the opportunity to create these forums, create this interaction, create this level of communication, as you mentioned, Don, that's the first step. It really is. It's the intentionality around speaking, listening, engaging, because then you go from engagement to education to then empowerment. And I think that's what we're all looking for. I think we're all looking to live in communities that are fully realizing the potential of all of our community members. And we may not all agree about how to get there, but I think we all have that common goal. Certainly, on behalf of our organization, it's core to what we want to be. As I've mentioned now a couple of times, the business plan is for us to truly be a community leader. It's one of our big priorities, and being engaged in these conversations. The best thing we can do is convene, and how it becomes is we convened in order to leave an impact. And so I want to thank you all. I hope you all will consider coming out to a game when the season does start and we are able to have fans. Hopefully that will be announced soon when that will be. And then and consider us as not only a friend but an ally as you all in the city of Scottsdale continue to have these dialogues. So thank you again, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Let me just say that I'm a firm believer that the root cause to any problem is a failure to communicate or refusal to communicate. The fact that we're engaging in a dialogue this morning goes a long ways towards. We probably didn't solve any issues this morning. That was not the objective, but to come together and engage in a conversation regarding a sensitive topic is a step in the right direction in terms of enhancing people's understanding about topics they have least amount of information about. So thank you, Stanna, Javier, Mark. I think I'm done here.
Well, I got to tell you,
Great.
Don, thank you so much. And as we wrap up, I just want to say, first of all, on behalf of the board of directors and all the members of the chamber, thank you for participating. These aren't easy conversations, which makes them so important. And having grown up here in the area, and Javier raising, I've got a 12-year-old son as well, and so I'm stepping on Legos still and all those good things. I wonder what the world is going to be like for him and how he's going to view things. But I do know there is absolutely no space in this community or any other for racism, but there is lots of space for diversity and inclusion. And I want to say thank you, obviously, to you, Don. One phone call and you were all in. And It means the world. It really does. Stanna, it's great to see you and to work with you on the Chiefs Community Engagement Committee. And Javier, I've always said, and I truly believe, there is no sport that would not be more exciting if you put it on ice. And I can tell you flat out, hockey is everything it's supposed to be. And I want to thank you for stepping up and being a great partner to the chamber and continuing to all three of you to the leadership that you bring. I will say this would not have been possible without our great staff behind the scenes helping pull everything together. I want to thank Cherie Valentino, our vice president, for running and making things happen that in a moment's notice. I want to thank Brittany Bolton. She's behind the scenes of the Zoom world, making it all work together. And I should say, Javier, she is a raving Coyotes fan. I mean, she's all in. She's all in. Matter of fact, I know this is an important conversation, but I know she listened to every word you said very well. So she's a big fan. I also want to thank Angie Van Dyne, who helped coordinate all of our graphics and all of the visuals and outreach, and Julie Plummer from our staff, who helped coordinate a lot of the event logistics as well. Finally, as a last word, the chamber is always looking to elevate discussions, to address issues that make quality of life important for our businesses, for our community, for our residents, and our stakeholders. And I think you've seen the representation on the call today, and none of this would have been possible without Nationwide Insurance. Nationwide, thank you for being a community leader, for helping the chamber, and for being a very important stakeholder in Scottsdale and in the state of Arizona. And then I need to also say that to the members that are here, thank you so much. I wouldn't be doing my chamber job if I didn't say come actions. So if you're available and you're around to do an event on December 8th virtually, it's our Women in Leadership series. We do that quarterly, and we are going to be featuring Suzanne Clark, who is president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And she'll be speaking about the national view of how businesses are doing, small businesses, how the interface is working with the federal government, in particular related to support and outreach and resources for small businesses and all businesses. And she speaker will be Suzanne Clark from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Women in Leadership, December 8th over lunch. And if you have any questions about more programming, please visit scottsdalechamber.com, scottsdalechamber.com. We are so grateful to this panel. Again, be safe, and a happy Thanksgiving to everyone. A safe, happy Thanksgiving. And I know we'll all get this group together again. I'd like to regroup down the road and bring all this group together. And hopefully by that time, it'll be face to face.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
That'll conclude the call.